Hey, this is Tiqqle, and in this video we're going to go over a log review for my buddy who's an Enhancement Shaman who came into our Discord saying that his guild won't help him out to improve his DPS and he knows he can do better. So without switching to Elemental or anything like that, we're going to try to help him out. We're going to review his Warcraft logs. He's still raiding. There are people that are still raiding. You got to remind yourself that people are still progressing their characters and still grinding. So if you're out there and you're interested in maybe getting my input or other people in our Discord's input to try to help you improve either your gear, your spec, your rotation, then go ahead and throw your logs into our Discord. Happy to do a review like this or do one live with you in Discord. Now, let's go ahead and jump into it. This is my man, Aragomag. Okay, Arag, listen, here's the deal. We're going to go into it, and I'm going to show everyone how we do this as well as we go through it. I've already done some pre-analysis, but you can see he got a 9% for overall enhanced parses, and then a 6 for people within his item level range. This is really the one you want to be focusing on, as that's the one, especially as you might not have played the entire X-Pack, that's going to be the one that's going to be within your gear range. So what we'll do is we'll click on him, and we can start to do things like even go to his summary to see, okay, look, he's Venthyr, here's his stat breakdown, here's his soul binds, here's his talents, here's his build of his different gear. But what I've already done that, but what we want to do next is you want to go over and we want to compare him to someone within the same fight duration. This is Shriekwing, the first boss of Castle Nathria. It's a very straightforward fight. It's a really easy way to see some of the core mechanics of your gameplay and rotation, especially because there aren't ads, there aren't ways to amplify your DPS, there is nothing like that, like Sludgefist and other bosses. So what we'll do is we'll go over to compare. Compare will allow me to select from this bottom section. I'll be able to compare him. And then it says fight duration, raid, item level, time range. All those things are really important, but just leave them at the default. Search, and then we're able to see all these other enhanced shamans. Now, my buddy, he did about 2k DPS. These guys are doing 2.7, 4.3. And one of the things that we need to look at, though, is remember, we saw what his build was. He was not using Hot Hand. A lot of people using that lava actuator. That's freaking cool. Keep rocking it. Now, he was using Doom Winds. He was also a Venthyr. So I've already kind of gone through to see there's actually a Necrolord here. This guy, Thorn, is a Necrolord, which is actually pretty cool. But we'll go to Hymns. Hymns is another Venthyr, and we'll be able to look at this, comparison in detail. So we'll click on that. This will bring up a side-by-side comparison of the damage breakdown, as well as other things we'll get into soon. I also have other videos about this, by the way. If you haven't seen those, you can check down below. But what we're able to see now is your damaging abilities. Oh yeah, I want to increase my DPS. Well, as an Enhancement Shaman that's using Doom Winds, the number one thing you need to be maximizing is your Windfury procs. What you're able to see is Windfury attack. You did about 106 Arag, and our boy over here, our new man Hymns, did about almost double. Now, what that tells me immediately is that this is one of two things could be improved. One, your uptime on the boss. Two, your use of Doom Winds. Okay? Those are the two things we're going to be looking for. Now, after that, I see Storm Strike. Storm Strike casts, you cast 22 times. He cast 41 times. That's double the Storm Strikes. So yeah, I'm not that surprised you might be doing double your damage, but that's okay. We're going to keep looking into it because maybe there are other small things to do to improve things as well. We're also able to see the flame shocks, like 11 flame shocks to 14, very close. Lightning bolts, you did 14, he did 22, so he might be managing his Maelstrom better. We have some tools that will help you with that. Feral Spirits, twice, he did it twice. He used Chain Harvest 3 times, used it 3 times. So a lot of the cooldowns are pretty similar. Even Sundering, he used it 5 times, used it 2 times. So to me, already, it seems like maybe your cooldown usage and lining those up correctly might be a big factor, as well as uptime and making sure you're doing your burst rotation correctly. So what we'll do next is I'll bring you over to, let's look at your summary. This is where you're able to see stat breakdowns and compare them between people. Like I said, their conduits, everything like that. What I'm able to see right away is that your crit and his crit are pretty similar. And honestly, crit is a huge factor for enhances DPS. Now, the other thing is your haste, very high. His is a bit lower and is kind of something that I think people think that is so important, but it's actually usually secondary to crit. And of course, everyone should sim their own characters to figure out your own stat distribution. But to me, it looks like your haste is probably a little bit high compared to some verse. So you have 240 verse. He has 650. That's probably giving him an additional multiple percent increased damage overall. And one way that we can see that is if we go back to damage. I can go to Storm Strike. Your average Storm Strike was about 1.5. His average Storm Strike was 1.8. That's probably the versatility doing magic there, because not a whole lot of other things. Nothing boosts that. Now, other than that, your mastery does look a bit higher than his. Mastery is pretty much our worst stat for this build. So I recommend, if you have mastery gear, you might want to run a sim, which I have already done for you, and we can look at how to make things better. All right, so we've gone through the stats. We're looking at stat breakdown. Maybe you need some more verse. Maybe you need a little bit less haste. You need less mastery. Get enhanced pumping. Otherwise, your soul binds are on point. Your unruly winds is the same as his unruly winds, so it's not like he's getting a higher chance of proccing them. So let's go ahead and move to the most important part, the rotation part. How do you do this? Well, you go to casts. If you go to casts, this will show you every single button you both press. Now, what I want to do is I want to go to cast. I want to go to timeline. This will now show me a side-by-side comparison of exactly what you both did for your rotation. I hope it's not too small, but what I'm able to do now is I can scroll through the entire fight and see exactly the buttons you press, because it's not my opinion on what's best, it's what is performing better here. And this is how you can compare yourself to people that are doing better and figure this out for yourself, no matter what spec you are. If you're a boomkin, an unholy DK, whatever it is. Now let's go ahead and look at the opener. Openers are usually that point in the fight where you have the highest peak damage, as long as there's no other damage amplifiers. Now, frankly, it's really, really, really important on Enhance. Why? Because you have Ascendance. Ascendance is a massive 3-minute cooldown. And you need to be coupling that with Windfury procs from Doom Winds, which is from your Windfury totem. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. The both of you have a freaking weird opener. And I don't know what happened here. But your opener was this. You went in, you Flame Shock. That's good. You popped Wolves. That's good. You didn't use any on-use potions. You should use a potion because this is your burst phase. You then pop a Windfury totem. And as soon as you put down a Windfury totem, the timer starts. Those 12 seconds for Doom Winds begin. And then you push it down again and again. Well, guess what? Your 12 seconds is from 3 seconds to 15. And that's this window. And in this window, you didn't really do much. Frankly, you didn't do anything. So you need to make sure that when you can't put down a Windfury totem until you are ready to burst. I don't care about your raid group. Don't buff them. This is about you, okay? The way you need to do it is you need to pop Windfury totem after you pop Ascendance. That's because Ascendance lasts for 15 seconds, and Windfury Doom Winds lasts for 12. Now, you do use Chain Harvest. Like, that's okay to dump it off early, get it on cooldown. But frankly, your opening here is not very good. And the reason for that is two things, without even comparing it to hymns. Number one, you dropped Doom Winds too early. You did use a Storm Strike, then you used Ascendance. I do like that combo because it does reset the Wind Strike / Storm Strike. So now you go ahead, you pop Ascendance. Doom Winds again, this would have been correct. Then you use Wind Strike, and then you use a Lightning Bolt. Now, here's the thing. If you're trying to optimize Doom Winds, you need to know the following things. There are only 3 abilities in the game. I'm going to ignore Ice Strike, okay? There's only 3 abilities that people take in the game that proc Windfury when you hit. And these are the buttons you have to prioritize as the #1 things to press, no matter what, when you pop Doom Winds. Specifically when you have Ascendance going. You need, because the thing is, when you pop and you proc more Windfury, when you proc Windfury, it gives you chances to reset your Storm Strike, which is huge when you have Ascendance, because Wind Strike hits for so hard, okay? Keep that in mind. So the 3 abilities are Sundering, Wind Strike or Storm Strike, or Crash Lightning. Now, the last one might surprise you, and I do have guides in my channel about Doom Winds and using it more optimally, but it's very, very, very important that you understand that. That means you need to prioritize using, I would say, Storm Strike, Crash Lightning, and then Sunder. Because any of those could reset Storm Strike, which then puts that at the top of the priority queue. So, keep that in mind. Because one of the things I saw is that you don't use Crash Lightning almost ever. And that's a mistake. You need to be using that with your Doom Winds. And frankly, it needs to be a filler in your rotation. Crash Lightning will increase the damage of your Storm Strike a little bit. But it's also another button to press, and it can proc a Storm Strike reset, which is huge. So make sure to remember to press that, because I don't think you press that very often at all. Now, the other thing I see in your burst rotation is, again, if you're using Ascendance, you need to prioritize using Wind Strike no matter what. I see you're using Lightning Bolt, and then you use Chain Lightning, and you used it some other times. In single target, you never, ever, ever use Chain Lightning. It's just not the play. You have to use Lightning Bolt. Okay? So make sure you have that in mind. The other thing to mention is that you kind of are randomly using Sundering. Again, you need to be coupling Sundering with Windfury Totem. It's worth it waiting an extra 10 seconds if they're off, like, you know, desynced on their cooldowns just to get that additional procs to make your burst window bigger. Now, the other thing that you need to make sure that you don't do, and I see it over here, is that you began casting Lightning Bolt, you began casting Chain Lightning. You don't want to do that. Never, ever, ever, ever cast Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning. It's never, ever worth it. With managing Maelstrom weapon stacks, the key thing to me is that you never want to be uber low on stacks. I would not be pressing them ever if you're not above like 7. And the reason for that is there's so many other buttons you need to be pressing, and I see that you're not. And the thing is, you can see it down here, Frost Shock. I don't see anywhere in your rotation you're pressing Frost Shock. Frost Shock is actually a great filler for your DPS rotation. Now, it doesn't give you Maelstrom stacks, it doesn't use Maelstrom stacks, but it does fill in your DPS rotation. Now, it is more important, by the way, to keep up Flame Shock than Frost Shocking. They do share cooldowns. But you need to be using Frost Shock as a filler. It will make it so you won't get to these points where you don't have Maelstrom weapon stacks. And to be honest, you want to use that over you spending your Maelstrom in a lot of cases because you want your Maelstrom to continue to stack up. As long as it doesn't get to like 10 and overstack, then you're fine. You want to make sure, though, you can see down below, Frost Shock, Frost Shock, Frost Shock is being used. So these are some kind of key tips, but I want to kind of go back to the opener here, and then we'll kind of look through this whole picture. The opener for both of you is very, I don't understand why it's happening the way that it is. What I did instead is I went over to a mythic parse, the top mythic enhance that I could find, Patsu here, which with a similar build that you do. A lot of Night Phase, but you guys are Venthyr. Now, what I recommend is you look at this and you practice this on a dummy. This is what the exact buttons you should be pressing during your rotation, and it hits all the points that I was discussing. It puts up Flame Shock, Wolves, unused Trinket with a Baby Storm Strike, uses Racials, uses unused Trinkets, all that stuff. And then you pop Ascendance. He's using 2 Wind Strikes because he had a proc. He basically is putting it on cooldown. And then he's using Doom Winds or Windfury Totem, which then makes it so that a lot of times you're going to get resets on your Wind Strike. He then uses Wind Strike because that's the #1 priority. Crash Lightning because that's the 2nd priority when you have Doom Winds going. And then he uses Sunder. He finally gets a reset. He uses Wind Strike. Wind Strike. As a filler, he does use Lava Lash. That's fine. He probably didn't have the Maelstrom stacks. And it's a filler ability. The other, yeah. So then we'll go into Wind Strike. Wind Strike, he's getting a lot of resets. Storm Strike again. Or Crash Lightning, I should say, again, which could have reset his Wind Strike again. So that's really what it's about. He then refreshes his Flame Shock, uses 1 more Wind Strike, and then at the end of it, he dumps his Maelstrom with Chain Harvest. Now, it's okay to overstack your Maelstrom during this phase. Frankly, it's fine. But if you don't have Wind Strike, if you don't have Sundering, if you don't have Crash Lightning, then I recommend you dump it and dump it into Chain Harvest probably first. Okay? But you also want to be having this potion buffing you up during this phase as well. So you get everything kind of rocking and rolling. So that's the rotation. And you can look at these logs just like I showed you as well. Now let's go ahead and look at this. In general, the opener, like I just said, should be what I just described. So let's go after Ascendance is over. After Ascendance is over, you're able to see, let's see, right about here, you're able to see, you know, you're using Storm Strike similar to him into Lightning Bolts, Crash, Flame Shock management, okay, sure. You're using Storm Strike, Lightning Bolts. It looks like you ran out of Maelstrom and you ran out of buttons to press. Frost Shock, okay. Lava Lash. You got to add Lava Lash into your rotation a lot more. Lava Lash and Frost Shock need to be fillers when you don't have a Storm Strike, when you don't have a Crash, and when your Maelstrom weapon stacks aren't above 8. Okay? That's what I recommend for you. The other thing is, you know, it seems like there's just less, like, this is kind of super downtime. That's when you need to put in those fillers, okay? Now it seems like this is when you ran away to line of sight. That's fine. He didn't. He was a little bit of a bold man. That's all right. He jumps back in, gets some more hits. And again, your Windfury usage is a little questionable. You need to be using it only when you're going to be using your Doom Winds rotation. This is not really it. You use it here. You don't really do anything. You use a Lava Lash that doesn't proc Windfury. Then you use Crash, which does, but then you prop it again. So these are wastes of globals, right? You need to be popping it, and then you need to be using only buttons that proc Windfury. Crash, Storm Strike, Storm Strike, Storm Strike, Sunder, you know, maybe he had to run out, I don't know, during that frost shock. So that's the other thing you need to be aware of. Otherwise, you know, your rotation here was closer, but again, you need to be using Sunder during the Doomwinds window. So those are my big tips for you. Otherwise, again, you know, make sure that you're keeping your big cooldowns on cooldown. And make sure, in this fight, it's fine, and I would look at other logs as well, but it's fine to use Doomwinds like on cooldown, even though it doesn't quite sync up. Like, for example, we'll go back to that mythic parse with this guy, and he did use, let's see, where's Doomwinds? Doomwinds, okay, Doomwinds. He didn't line it up with Ascendants, and that's also probably because he might have known the fight was going to be barely 3 minutes. But you can prop that on cooldown, but also look at the logs. See what people are doing to proccing, lining up Doomwinds and Ascendants. It will align on the third go as long as there aren't further delays, because it's 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute. Ascendance is a 3 minute cooldown. So you do want to line those up when you can. It gives you savage burst. And that's why you'll see, even on this mythic log, what you'll see is that the spike in the beginning is massive. That's because all of his cooldowns lined up. But you can kind of get close to that again. But, you know, those are kind of, these procs are Doomwinds. But if he had Ascendance and Doomwinds, it multiplies Doomwinds' effectiveness by so much. So now that's that. Let me go ahead and show you one other thing. I did get you did send me your Sim C, so I am able to see that. So what we'll do is look at your stats, and we'll see. But those are the things I would tell you. Frost Shock, Lava Lash, make sure your burst rotation is button tight. Make sure you're practicing that a lot so that you're pumping and getting that peak in your opener that you need. It will carry your DPS through the rest of the fight. Now, what I also will show you is you actually sent me your SimC. I wanted to run your gear because, like we saw, your mastery is a bit high, your verse is a little bit low. What's the deal? And what you can do is you can grab SimC. If you don't know about this, I have a video. I'll put it down in the description. You can put all your gear here, your output of this add-on, and it will load all your gear. You're then able to press certain combinations of gear and then to see how they perform. Now, one of the things that people, I think, could use some better feedback on, or some more guidance, is the fact that rings don't have main stats. Okay, so sometimes you can use a lower item level ring that has better stats. That's way better. In this case, you were using these 3 rings. Now you were using a 220, right? Well, and maybe because you thought it had a ton of haste, it was awesome. Well, it turns out you don't need as much haste, and the mastery is not really that good, even though the eye level's so high. So this ring is actually going to be much better. You can see in the sim, I did already run it. You can say, put crit, don't put haste, and use this ring. This is the crit verse, and then crit on it even more. And the verse is going to help you kind of buff your verse up to where we saw the other individual was. So you're able to see, you know, this is only raising it by 40, but it can be, this is a bit, you know, it's hard to say where the simulations, how that really translates in game. Now, the only other thing I want to point out is, let's go back to your logs really quick, is your trinkets. I think trinkets are another really big thing that people need to be aware of. Now, trinkets and weapons, actually. So your trinkets, you were using the Inscrutable, the IQD, let's just say it like that. And he was using a passive trinket, which is actually very good. This is huge. And he was using this Anima Battery, which you were also using. Now, I didn't see you press this at all. Now, frankly, I think you should use it at the beginning and align it up with Ascendance and make sure that you understand how it works. There's a WeakAuras for it. Maybe someone in the comments can share that. But you want to make sure you're using your trinkets. Like, you didn't use this trinket, I don't think, at all. And that is something you definitely want to make sure you're propping, especially because this can be so good. And you have a 226. Now, the other thing I'll mention to you, and that it's probably is lowering your DPS quite a bit, is your weapon item level. Your item level overall is pretty decent. I think it's like 220. But frankly, your weapon item level is kind of low. You need to make sure you get some Mythic Plus weapons, and you plus them up to 220. The weapons are the highest factor of DPS for you. You need to get that up there because your weapons will just carry your damage in a big way. So you can see that this guy had one higher weapon, but I'm telling you right now, if you prioritize getting Mythic Plus 220s, it will do a lot for your DPS, even more than your item level. Item level isn't everything. And frankly, if you have 226 neck rings, it's going to boost your item level a bit versus where the rest of your gear is, specifically your weapons. So definitely work on that. So with that being said, I do have a WeakAuras I will share in the description below. I think one of the things for you, my boy, Arag, is you need to manage your Doomwinds. You need to know when it's up. This is a WeakAuras that will show you when it is available. You also need to have more, maybe a closer management on your sundering cooldowns, your storm strikes, some of your Maelstrom weapons, you need to be managing those. So I have a WeakAuras package that's very minimal. It'll go in kind of towards the middle of your screen. You can move it around, but it's going to help you know when your Windfury is available, when you proc it, because it's kind of hard to track that 12 seconds. So I hope that will help you. I'll put it all down in the description. But with that being said, that was the log review for Arag. Guys, let me know what you think down in the comments. If you have any other tips for him, I'm going to be doing a bunch of other log reviews because people have been asking. I have a list. We're going to do Ellie and Enhance and all of that. So if you guys are interested in a log review, make sure to go into the Discord, PM me, or go into one of the spec-specific channels, and we will try to help you out. It's all about helping you guys out, getting a little bit further. You shouldn't quit. You shouldn't re-roll because your DPS isn't there. There's a few things you can probably do that will make a huge difference. And with that being said, guys, I want to thank everybody on Patreon and on Twitch subs. Guys, thank you so much for the love. We will see you in the next video or on stream every day around 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.